And Steve Bone time comes round, it seems to me, sooner and sooner. But then that's partly because he bears so many repeats that we repeat him, is the thing there.
So Steve can repeat, then so can you.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sat here with a can of fizzy drink. My son bought a cash and carry batch of fizzy drinks, and it's one of the colas, you know. And I'd forgotten how much I nicked one, and I'd forgotten how much I liked cola, because you know it's bad for you now, so I don't drink it, and you lose it.
Full of sugar. Yeah.
But if you have a little cough, we won't mind, and if I have a little belch, you won't mind either.
All part of life's tapestry, isn't it? Yeah,
let's get down to the nitty. Yes, let's get down to the nitty gritty of Pompey. I'm going to shoot you right between the eyes and ask you how many points.
Painful.
How many points do we need to stay up?
Well, I think at the moment we need to aim to get another 10. I think we're on. What are we on? 42 at the moment, and I think we need to aim for 52. And I think if we get to 52 we'll be okay. It may be that we don't need that many. It may be in the event 50 will be enough, maybe 49 will be enough, but I think it'll be on the safe side at the moment. 10 from the final 8 games will see us there, and I think we'll probably finish about 17th or 18th if we get that many,
which would be fine. Where are we going to get those 10 points?
Well, yeah, good question. 8 games left, 4 at home, 4 away, and I'm looking at them. You know me, I look at groups of games rather than individual games. So I'm looking at the next 4 games, and then I'm looking at the last 4 games. The next 4 are home to Blackburn this weekend, away to Millwall the following weekend, away to Coventry the following midweek, and at home to Derby on the 12th. That's your first 4, and then the final 4 games are away to Norwich Good Friday, home to Watford Easter Monday, away to Sheffield Wednesday on the penultimate Saturday, home to Hull on the final Saturday, May the 3rd. So I'm thinking, if you agree that we need 10 points, how many do you want from the first 4? And I think if you get 6 points from the first 4, you're on the way. You're well on the way, because that would only leave you needing 1 win and 1 draw, 4 points from the final 4, which would be doable if that's what you need. I think you get that from the final 4. So the question then becomes, can you get 6 points from these next 4? The obvious thing to think is that if you beat Blackburn and Derby at home, you've done it, and you don't have to worry about getting anything from Millwall and Coventry away. Pompey don't do it like that though, do they? We're just as likely to lose the 2 home games and win the 2 away games, judging by recent results, you know, where we beat Leeds and then lost to Plymouth and Preston. But if you can kick off that little run of games at home to Blackburn on Saturday, who are not in the best form, are they? They've slipped a bit. If you can kick off that little run of games with a win, just takes the pressure off and suddenly leaves you needing 7 points from 7. Which sounds a bit more palatable, doesn't it? So I don't think it's a massively pressurised game on Saturday, but I think if you were to lose it, I think the pressure would just start to mount a little bit, because probably 1 or 2 of those sides behind us will pick up a win somewhere. I think a couple of them are playing each other again, and then you'd be looking over your shoulders again. So that is all the incentive the boys need to go out and beat Blackburn, really.
Yeah, I've got something up my sleeve which I think supports what you're saying. Because I'm getting increasingly interested in the distinction between Pompey at home and Pompey away. And I can't remember a season when it was in sharper perspective than this year.
No, it is massive, isn't it?
We've been averaging just on 0.5 of a point per away game, and just over 1.5 points per home game.
Yeah.
And if you translate that in exactitude to our remaining 8 fixtures, we do indeed get 10 points. Unless my maths is poor.
That's useful to know.
Yep. So we will come on to that, the distinction between home and away. But what I have to say is, did I hear you say correctly that you think we'll do it?
Yes. I think we will.
Yeah.
I think we'll get those 10 points. I don't think we'll get much more than 10 because we've not been that consistent, have we? Even where we've been very good at home, we've tended to intersperse those home wins with away defeats, including some quite big ones. And where we do get the odd away win, like at Oxford and at QPR, we're also prone to the odd home defeat, such as Plymouth and Millwall. So I think overall we'll be okay. I think if you're any of the teams below us in the table, you would like to be us. You'd look at Pompey's position and think, yeah, we'd be okay if we were in that position. If you were Plymouth on 33 points, you wouldn't really be too worried about teams 9 points ahead of you. You'd be just looking at who's 21st and whether you can catch them. And that's Cardiff at the moment on 39 points. And Stoke have got 39 too. So we're okay. We don't need to panic, but we have got a bit of work to do. But I think we'll do it.
Of course, the day will dawn when we start looking at the last few fixtures of the teams that we might be up against facing relegation. And much as I like drama, I don't want us to go up against Hull on the last day of the season.
No.
Having a look to make sure that Plymouth lose, because they might not, and therefore us having to win, which is a dreadful burden on the last day of the season. But on the other hand, if my ideal scenario would be all we have to do is turn up to watch Pompey versus Hull and us not get beaten by 6 goals.
Yes, that
would be lovely.
That's quite nice, isn't it?
Then we could afford to be generous to Abu Kamara, which we may not be if there's anything hanging on it.
Not too generous, I hope. But excuse me, I'm just going to have a little cough. Excuse me. I mean, if you turn up on the last day needing anything, then it's a bit of a shame because it shouldn't have gone that far, really, given where we were a few weeks ago.
No.
But yeah, if it's a sort of only a freak set of results can send us down, then you'd be quite comfortable. Although if you know what Pompey are like, they'll turn up needing to not lose 6-0 and they'll find themselves 2-0 down inside 8 minutes or something, won't they? People will start to worry.
Yeah.
You wouldn't really want to have to beat Hull. It could be a shootout between us and Hull, couldn't it? For the one survival, one safe place and one relegation spot. I'd still back us to win actually at home if it came down to that. I think with those big pressure games we do quite well in, and I think home advantage would tell in that if that happened. But let's hope it doesn't. Let's hope it's all sorted before then.
Yeah, you see, and if it does boil down to other results elsewhere, then we'll all be watching and listening as word spreads around the crowd.
Yeah.
Because there aren't very many people whose mobile phones are good enough to get a proper signal.
No.
So we can't keep up. We can't keep up with latest scores from elsewhere, can we?
No, there could be a lot of uncertainty, couldn't there? And there'll be some people that know the score, and you sometimes get wrong information passed around, don't you?
Yeah.
These I remember one on the last day of the 92-93 season. It was between us and West Ham for the second automatic promotion spot from Division. It would have been called Division 1 then, because that was in the first season of the Premier League. So it was what is now the Championship.
Yeah.
Newcastle were champions, and it was between us and West Ham. We had to better West Ham's result, and at one point I think we were playing Grimsby, and I think at one point we were winning and West Ham were winning, and there was a rumour that Cambridge, who were playing West Ham, had equalised at West Ham, and it turned out not to be true. They'd had a goal disallowed. Funnily enough, scored by Steve Claridge, I think.
Yeah.
Which would have been poetic, wouldn't it, if he'd sent us up. But there was, just for a few minutes, everybody was thinking, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to be automatically promoted, and then it didn't happen. And of course, that all comes crashing down. So, yeah, it can be very tense and nervous on the last day, can't it? I mean, more recently, of course, we had the situation where we were already promoted, but we were going for the League Two title with Plymouth and Doncaster, wasn't it? 2017. Didn't think we had a chance because we had to win and hope that the other two didn't win, and that is exactly what happened in the end. And I remember that was another occasion where people were saying, "What's the score here? What's the score there? What's going on?" So yeah, all part of the fun of the end of the season.
Yeah, and back
But
in the good old days, which weren't the good old days, but we'd think of them as the good old days. There used to be the bloke in the crowd with the portable transistor radio.
Yeah. There was, and there weren't many people with that sort of thing in the crowd, were they? So everybody would be crowding around him.
Yeah. What's the score?
What's the score? One of those days. Yeah.
What did he say?
Seeing what the Radio 2 commentary game was, and waiting for the classifieds, James Alexander-Gordon, and all that.
Yeah.
All good days. Yeah. A bit different now, isn't it?
It is absolutely different now, and I believe that Pompey are trying to get a Wi-Fi booster into the ground so that people can use their mobile phones before, during and after the game.
You'd think it would be possible, wouldn't you, in this day and age? Really, I don't know. I don't understand the technology of what they would need to do or what needs to happen. But it shouldn't be asking too much for people to be able to get a phone signal.
No.
All at the same time, if they want it at half time or at full time or whenever.
Now, you mentioned West Ham a moment ago, and that gives me a nice link into Freddie Potts. And I'm hearing that Graham Potter. What's going on with the Potts dynasty up at West Ham? Then they got Graham Potter and
Potts,
Freddie Potts and Steve Potts,
of Potts, haven't they?
Yes, yeah. It's what does it think it is? A snooker hall?
I don't know.
What is going on?
Yeah.
But anyway, Freddie, who we love, and we'd love to have another season with. And Musino has said we're really going to try and get him back for another year. But at the same time, Potter has signed him up on a 4.5-year contract.
Yeah.
And said that what he's doing is building a young team for the future. So he may be on the first train to Romford out of Fratton Park when the season ends.
Great for him, isn't it? Because he clearly that is where he wants to make his name and break into the first team and be a Premier League regular and perhaps an international in time. I think he's got the potential to do that. It comes down to whether West Ham will see him as someone they want to use in their first team squad next season, or do they keep him in the Championship for another season, hopefully the Championship, if that's where we are, with us. I these days I try not to get my hopes up too much with loan players, because more often than not we don't get them back.
No.
You think of all those stars last season, Kamara, Robertson, a couple of others as well.
And Duran,
And Duran, that's who I was trying to think of. And none of them came back. And at different times we thought any of them might come back, and then they didn't. So at the moment I'm thinking you've got to reckon at the moment without Potts, probably without Hayden, the Newcastle player, probably won't have Atkinson, probably won't have Omani. If we then end up getting one bonus, it's good news. So I don't think it's impossible with Potts. I think Pompey will have made their feelings known to West Ham already. They will have told them that they have done well by him. They've helped his development, and I'm sure West Ham will have seen that Pompey have helped his development. But it'll come down to it'll be Graham Potter's decision, I think, won't it? When all's said and done, if he sees him as someone that he's going to blood into his first team squad and put on the bench regularly, or even give a few starts to, then that will be the end of Freddie at Pompey, which would be a shame. But I don't think we'll know one way or the other probably until quite sort of late in the summer, really, until teams come back from pre-season. But you can't plan for Potts being here. You've just got to hope for the best.
Yes. And Andre Dozzell, apparently his Pompey future depends on Pompey staying up, but this is only a rumour. I can't say if there's anything in that, but that's what they're gossiping.
What, as in if we did go down, he would be on his way?
He's a Championship player, and he wants to stay a Championship player.
I think
minimum.
I think that's probably fair enough. I think there's probably a few in the squad that would say the same thing, without knowing off the top of my head who's out of contract at the end of the season. If we did go down, and I say again, I don't think we're going to. If we did go down, would Callum Lang still be here next season?
Good call.
Not
That's
sure
a good call.
he would. One or two others. There's probably not that many others actually when you go through it. But Dozzell would certainly be one. Josh Murphy, you wouldn't think would really want to go back to League One after the season he's had. So yeah, let's hope that's a problem we don't have to encounter, because I think Dazal has really come on over the course of the season. I think to start with, I was thinking, does he offer us anything more than we've already got in the squad? But actually, over time, I think he's proved his worth. I think he's grown in confidence. You often don't see him much during a game, but actually at the end of the game you realise that he's covered a lot of ground, put a lot of tackles in, done a lot of work, and therefore done his job as a sort of defensive midfield player.
That's right. As a player, bearing in mind his pedigree, he reminds me a little bit of Frank Lampard, who kind of kept below the radar a lot on the pitch. He didn't do anything spectacular. You never saw him running at 190 miles an hour with his elbows pumping. No. You never saw him clattering into anybody, in a crude way. But he did his job.
Does very effectively, doesn't he, around the midfield? Does whatever needs to be done.
He's in the right place at the right time.
Bit of tracking back, bit of linking the defence to attack. Yeah, I think that's a good comparison, actually.
Okay, so Mousinho is also now on record. Yesterday, I think he said it. He says things sometimes in interviews, not for the general public so much as for other people in the professional football game. Yes. And he said something yesterday which was for the benefit of other managers.
Right,
he said Pompey are quite rightly getting a reputation for being a good place to send a lone player to, because we look after them.
Yeah.
And I think he's right. But
yes.
See, the timing of making a remark like that suggests to me that he and Rich are already looking at potential loan players for next season.
Yeah, I wouldn't be at all surprised. I agree with you. I think he is right. I think if you look at how some of the young loanees last season flourished while they were here, and actually haven't done as well elsewhere this season, a couple of them. Potts is the obvious one this season, who's done well, but so too have a couple of others. Omani, when he's been fit, has done well and has probably developed as a player. So yeah, they're probably thinking, right, who are we going to want? What sort of calibre of loan player are we going to want next season? You know, if next season is our second season in the Championship, and we all hope it will be and believe it will be, that's a bit different, because you're a bit more established. You're probably a bit more able to go to the top clubs and say, we're an established Championship club, we're aiming to be in the top half of the Championship. You know, who have you got that we can, or I don't suppose it's that Pompey ask who they've got that can help them, but Pompey will have scouted certain players and will go to clubs and say, we like the look of young Freddie Bloggs or whatever. Can we have him on loan for a year? You know, if you're thinking of loaning him out, loan him to us. And the legwork on that must start pretty early, I would think. Yep. And will have already started, as you say.
And Mousinho's always been clear that... Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
That's right.
But Mousinho's always been clear that when they bring a player in, they bring the whole player in. And if you're a young player who perhaps still lives at home, don't know...
Yeah.
Not unusual for a 21-year-old to still be living at home, and his dad's up to his ears in football, so it'd be a good environment for him.
Yeah.
And if you live cough and a spit away from the M25, which can on occasions be clear of traffic jams,
sometimes
you could be at the Fratton training ground, at the Hillsey training ground, in I would say an hour and a bit in your turbocharged whatever.
Yeah.
Which is better than having to hunt round for a flat and live on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a bad option, is it? If you're near enough to you know, or if you're between here and London, for example, you might live down in the sort of Surrey belt somewhere, mightn't you? Somewhere like that. All these rich footballers' families might be down there. It's you know, if you're a young player with let's say a London Premier League club, you'd probably say you'd be more inclined to want to go down to Pompey for a year than to Blackburn or Middlesbrough.
Absolutely.
So it's a bit of
it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Really? No, but I think you're right. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, clearly, if you live in the northwest, you'd rather go to Blackburn than Pompey.
Yeah.
You know, it works both ways. But there's a good pool of young talent there. It's sort of beneath the surface of the Premier League clubs' first team squads that Pompey are probably looking at. I'm sure they send people to all the Premier League 2 games, which I think is what they call the under 23s and development sides these days. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I'm sure there'll be a couple of names that we don't know about, even that we've never heard of, who come onto the radar between now and pre-season.
Because we're very lucky being, at driving distance from London, because when it comes to football, London is a real cash and carry, isn't it? People from abroad, Italians come over here and Spanish, they say, oh yeah, we got 2 teams in Madrid. Yeah, we got 2 teams in Turin. How many teams have you got in London? You go, I don't know, it must be 11, 12, is it?
I think there's 13.
13 is it now?
League, isn't there? I think if you go down as far as League 2, I think there always used to be 13, and I can't think that any of them have gone under or anything. So that's impressive, isn't it? Really,
it is.
That's a big number of players, isn't it?
Well, back in the day, you could probably travel right the way from one side of London to the other, and you're never out of the sight of somebody's floodlights.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they're dotted around, aren't they?
And rich pickings, therefore.
North, south, east, and west. Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got 5 or 10 Premier League and Championship sides and squads.
Yes.
To farm.
Yeah, and that's a lot of clubs who are going to end up with spare players, aren't they? They're going to, if they've all got a squad of 25, there's going to be players there that are good and need to be playing regular men's football that aren't going to get much of a look in there.
Okay, let's we won't go down the rabbit hole of London football. I think we've done that. It is a rabbit hole as well.
It is.
What should we talk about? Mick Robertson elsewhere on Pompey Sound is concerned about. He's asking, where are the goals going to come from? Colby, yes, but where else? Now that Yengi's out for a couple of games minimum.
Yeah, I heard him talking about that, and he's right, because you can't rely on Colby. Colby's never going to score you a hat-trick every week. He's going to weigh in with his share, but he's not going to, he's still got to remember where Colby Bishop has come from at the start of this season. We're lucky to have him in the team at all.
Yeah.
So you mustn't expect too much of him. Murphy is the obvious one in terms of who's still fit and who we're going to see over these last 8 games. Murphy is. He's someone who always looks like he's got a goal in him as well as an assist, doesn't he? You'd be looking to him for them. I think you've got to look to your defenders as well to get up for set pieces. We haven't had too much of that this season. We haven't had nearly as many goals from set pieces as we did last season, with Shaughnessy and Ogilvie and Poole sending in headers. Although Ogilvie is our joint 4th top scorer at the moment, which is pretty good for a left back, isn't it? A left back who many people thought wouldn't be in the team.
He does bomb on, as they used to say.
He does, yeah. He likes to get up there, doesn't he? Not just for set pieces either. There's been a couple of games where he's suddenly loomed up in the area. He goes on a right. If Murphy's going down the wing, Ogilvie will run inside him, won't he, and get into the area.
It's clearly pre-arranged, isn't it? They know what's going on. That when he does that, he's got to be covered. Somebody's got to move across,
that's
or
right.
drop back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's a big hole there.
It's a good switch to make if you can adapt it. As long as you've got the cover. You look into O'Sheesh. I think if he's going to be playing, we want more goals from him. He scored one very good goal, didn't he, against Plymouth? Well, it was in vain, but you'd like one from him. Richie is never too far away. I think Richie is the other player in the squad along with Ogilvie with 4 at the moment. So he's always lurking in the area if the ball's coming in from the other side. I still think, I know people are a bit disillusioned with Yengi at the moment. I still think we might see him, before the end of the season.
Yeah.
He's not out for too long, we don't think, with this hamstring problem. Is it hamstring or calf? I think it's hamstring.
It's described as hammy, yes.
Yeah, picked up on international duty, which was inevitable, wasn't it? We sort of half joked about it last week, would he get injured even though he wasn't playing, and he did.
Wouldn't you like to know the moment when it went? Because what were they doing? Were they doing some sort of arduous sprint exercise, or were they doing some hard stretching? Or was he just
I don't know.
bending down to pick up a sixpence? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's led to some Pompey fans saying we just need to sell him in the summer because he's not ever going to be robust enough for a good run of games, which is what we want from him. But I don't know. I still think we might see him in a couple of games this season.
So.
And if we do, I hope he gets a goal or two.
Definitely,
because it's frustrating for him apart from for us. So yeah, we need some goals. But you know, Colby's got 7 since he came back, which is not a bad return, seeing as he's
about
only
one
been
every
in the
other,
team
isn't it?
since-
Something like that.
It's close to that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he only came back into the team in start of November. So probably fair to assume if he'd been in the team from the start, he would have probably had about 12 by now. Lang's got 10, and that is why he's such a big miss over this last period of the season.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need them.
He does know when to arrive in the 6-yard box at the right split second.
Yeah,
That's the art of it, isn't it? Just
the other
don't
threat,
hang around up there. Just arrive when you.
That's right.
When
Get
the
there
ball
at the
goes
right
through.
time. Yeah, you don't need to be a second early, do you?
No.
The other goal threat that we might find is that if Milosevic comes into defence against Blackburn, and he's being considered for it, I think, you know, maybe he's someone else who can be a threat from corners and so on.
He looks as though you wouldn't argue with him, but we'll wait and see. We'll wait until we see him in the light of day before we pass
that's
judgment
right,
on whether he's a visual threat as well as an athletic threat.
Let's hope he is. Yeah.
Just quickly, I got you last week to start having a little think about this crazy idea that I've had. Maybe it's not so crazy. That Pompey need one team for home games and a different team in some respects for away games, because when we go away, we could very easily have a different philosophy, which is to carve out a point. And so you're looking at full-backs away, don't bomb on. Centre-backs are just dangerous looking. We want 4 forwards who know how to be fouled and stay down and need treatment.
Yes,
because you're playing for a 0-0 draw.
It's a different game, isn't it? It's a different approach,
different mentality.
I've been giving this some thought, and I do think the as you talked about earlier, the marked difference between our home, not just our home results and away results, but our performances, is so great that I do think it's worth thinking about. I think might the manager even think about having 2 different formations and systems and playing one of them at home as your default home system, and a different one away as you're away, and within that you then have some changes of personnel. Let me give you a little 1 to 11 for home games next season, and a 1 to 11 for away games. And actually after I'd written this down, I realised that actually you're not making many changes in personnel here, but you're playing a different system. So, at home, I'm ruling out anyone who is currently on loan. I'm not including them in here because I don't think you can. I don't think you can get your hopes up. So at the moment, I'm only working with players that are players and we think are going to be here next season. Clearly, we will be bringing some more in the summer, especially if all the loans go back. So I'm working with the present squad, and I'm thinking of next season what we might do. So at home, going with Schmidt in goal, Devlin at right back, Paul and Shaughnessy in the middle, Cohen Bramall at left back. I don't think he's contracted at the moment beyond the end of this season, but I think we'll tie him down. I'm actually then going with a 4-2-3-1 at home, which is what's worked so well with us. So the 2 at the moment, I'm saying Pack and Tazal, because if you haven't got Potts or Hayden, that's what you're back to, and I wouldn't have a particular problem with that. You're then going with Ritchie, Lang and Murphy as the 3 behind the 1 of Bishop.
Right.
Away from home, I'm going to suggest going 5-3-1-1.
Yeah, I like it.
So I'm bringing in an extra central defender, and I'm bringing in some different defenders as well. So away from home, I'm having still got Schmidt in goal. I'm going for Williams at right back because I just think he's more defensive. He's a more solid defender. I'm going for Ogilvie to come in at left back. I say left back. It's more it's more right wing back and right and left wing back, because I'm going with 3 in the middle. I'm going with Paul, Matthews and Shaughnessy in the middle. I'm then playing 3 in midfield, which is Devlin, Pack and Dazal. That leaves me with 2 spots ahead of them. One is still going to be Bishop, because I think you have him in the team wherever you're playing, home or away or on Mercury. He's always in there for me. And that leaves you with either Lang or Murphy to play sort of off Bishop, either to his left or to his right, roam around a bit, but be the last man left forward when you're defending a corner.
Yeah.
Bit of pace just to keep the opposition pegged back a little bit at times. So, in other words, 2 completely different systems.
Yeah.
It gives you the option of, it gives you less of a worry about certain players being burned out through playing every game, because they'd only be playing half the games. And if enough players are used to playing 2 systems, then if in a particular home game your 4-2-3-1 isn't working, you can switch more easily to wing backs and whatever you want to do.
I like it very much. You know what? I'll tell you what. I'm the guest of the Messinos on Saturday. I don't know if I'll be able to stay on long enough to have a beer with John, because he has so many interviews to do after a game, and he wants to talk to his players after the game as well. It can be 7:30, 8 o'clock before he finally cracks a tinny.
You're the last one there waiting to speak to him, I expect.
He does.
Well, there we go.
I might throw this at him.
Tell him he can have that. He can have that for free. If it works, he can pay me commission. But
well, you know what you've got there. I don't want to be technical, but I will. What you've got there is the old Italian formation of 5 at the back.
Yeah.
With the central one of the 3 central defenders, the 3 centre halves, playing just behind the other 2. And also offering cover to the fullbacks. And I think they call that catenaccio.
Yes, that's right.
Pulling the bolt.
I think you're right.
And so the very last central defender, playing just behind the other 2, pulls the bolt across the defence and covers everybody, depending on where the ball is and where the danger is.
Yeah.
And they're not...
I just think...
the Italians are not known for shipping goals.
No, and I think you look at our away record this season. I think we should set out next season away from home. If we draw every away game 0-0, I think that's been a success. I think you go away and you set out to be hard to beat, or at least harder to beat than we have been away this season. There will then be some games where you lose anyway. There'll be others where actually as the game goes on you think, no, that we can do a bit more here. But you can adapt that system. You can go to 3 at the back and you can push Ogilvie and Williams further forward. You can go to a sort of 3-5-2 or something. I just think we maybe need a different approach away from home.
Well, I'd send them out there saying, imagine you're down to 10 men, play like that. Because when teams are down to 10 men,
they are harder to beat.
They're very hard to score against. We found that to our cost. And indeed, in fact, we benefited from on occasions ourselves.
Yes.
Down to 10 men, and so shut up shop. We're going to shut up shop.
Yeah.
We're going to wind down the clock. We're going to, do everything it takes. We're going to take 30 seconds for every throw-in.
Yeah.
We're going to pretend to go further forward than we should for the throw-in, so we get made to send back, go back.
Yeah.
Take a free kick too quickly, so it's got to be retaken. All the things that will wind the clock down.
And sometimes you can do that and actually then end up nicking a goal yourself because the other team are so frustrated. And
you've still got to pose a threat.
Too many men forward.
To keep men back. I see Pompey now have all 11 men in the penalty area when defending a corner.
Yeah.
And this is quite a sore point with a number of people who like there to be a man left up front.
Yeah, it doesn't give you an out, does it? Yeah. I like to see one, because if you do leave one forward, it generally means the other team will leave one back with him and another one quite nearby, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
And I think if that one that you leave forward is someone with a bit of pace, which is why I'm suggesting this away lineup would have a Lang or a Murphy in it up with Bishop. Someone like that who if your centre half does hoof it forward, you got half a chance of going away and scoring on the counter.
Yes, and Messino has been tackled on this, and apparently his philosophy is the more bodies there are in the box, the less likely there is to be a goal. And I think that could almost be a statistic that's been researched somewhere, but it's what he
Probably
quotes
has, yeah.
at
Yeah.
any rate.
Yeah.
And he is a student of the game, although he hides, he keeps his intellect and academic prowess. He keeps it to
Yeah.
himself. He doesn't
He
want
does,
to appear to
yeah.
be a swot.
No, but he does. Yeah, he studies it greatly. I'm sure. Yeah, and he is a defender as well. And
He's a central
I should
defender.
imagine-
Yes.
I should imagine defenders know more about how you should defend a corner than a striker might.
Yeah, that's true. Always good talking to Mr. Bone, and I think we've just about put the world and Pompey to rights again.
I think so.
And
just about.
I'll just get one last thing from you then, and that is, and of course people will be listening to this after the game, so it's brave of you to predict, but Blackburn?
Yeah, I actually predicted the score last week when we had a chat, because for some reason because we didn't have anything else to talk about in the international break, we probably started talking about the Blackburn game. So I'd better stick with what I said last week in case people are keeping all the recordings and using it against me. And I'm going to go Pompey 3, Blackburn 1.
Yes, that actually
I'll be delighted
that is
if
a
that
popular prediction amongst
Is it?
all our correspondents.
Others
Yes,
going for it as well.
yes, and I think that's something like 28-1. So I think I might just
Is it? Well,
in a place.
there we go. It's not impossible, but we'd be delighted. I mean, as ever, I'll be happy with a scrappy old 1-0.
Yeah.
But I just think a couple of early goals would settle the nerves, wouldn't it?
Have a good week. Talk soon.
You too. Look forward to it.